Welcome to another edition of the Chicks on the Right podcast. Very excited about our very special guest today. It is Sage Steele. Sage is currently host of the Sage Steele Show on Bill Maher's podcast network. She is a mom of three. She is a self-described Army brat and an alum of the ESPN network. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
I can't believe this is actually happening. Thank you.
We can't either. We're super excited.
Very much huge fans of yours. And by the way, you're a graduate of Carmel High School. My son just graduated from there a few weeks ago.
Crazy. I was a generation or two before him. I was just there this past week, and I cannot believe
you were.
That's where I was when I played golf the other day and got hit. Yes, again.
Oh my gosh.
I was right at Woodland Hills Country Club right there in Carmel yesterday.
Yeah, I was there on Sunday because there was a graduation party. So we just missed each other. And that's a beautiful course.
It is, yes. And I feel it in my thigh, how nice the court is where I got hit. But it's fine. Really, I'm fine. Walking is overrated.
Oh my gosh. I love that indie connection. Indie girls all here. Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
I had no idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. And so I was just going to ask, like, how often you get back here, and you clearly do get back here sometimes.
Not much. Actually, I was there because the NBA All-Star game was in Indianapolis for the blizzard in February, and that shocked everybody. This golf tournament for Anthony Calhoun, who's the Wish TV Channel 8 sports anchor, who replaced me in 1998 and has been there ever since. He does so much for teachers, treasures, a wonderful community there. But otherwise, I haven't been to an IU game in years. COVID changed things. So I'm really going to try to fix that soon. And I'm going to take you girls out for drinks. Let's go down.
I love it. That's fantastic. That's great.
So how are you doing? Because as I said, my kid just graduated from there. I know so I'm about to take him to college. I can't even think about it without welling up. And I know you're going through the same thing right now.
Is this your
How
first?
are you doing? Well, yeah. I mean, this is I have an older son who is special needs, and he's lived in a group home now for several years. But This is my baby boy, the only one I've sent off to college, and so we're about to be empty nesters, and it is hard. How are you coping?
She's my third of three, so I have been through this before. The other two were COVID kids, though, so they didn't get to go tour a bunch of college campuses. The only one that allowed them on campus was where they are. High Point University, North Carolina, which is an incredible, incredible school. I'm so grateful for what they've done there. I'll just say this. The motto is God, family, country.
Love it.
Yeah.
Walking you to being the president, if you are at a basketball game or a lacrosse game and they stand for the national anthem, and if your hat's not up, he will come tap you on the shoulder nicely and remind you.
I love that.
He's an immigrant. He's incredible. So we got very lucky considering the circumstances for both of my older two kids. So they'll be a senior, junior there at High Point this fall. And then my youngest daughter, Evan, she's going to be a freshman at Ole Miss.
Oh my gosh.
That's fantastic.
But I will tell you, I am very sad. Like, I'm so proud of them. I'm so excited for Evan in particular as she's going into her freshman year. I'm heartbroken that this chapter in life is over. I was very present for all these years because everyone tells us, right? It goes fast when you're in it. It goes slow. The years I was very present, even though kind of a crazy full-time career and all that. But maybe it's because that means I'm old too, and I'm single. I'm divorced now, and it's not exactly how I pictured this time in life to be. But it's God's plan, and so now I'm leaving the state of Connecticut. I stayed through once I left ESPN to let her graduate. And she's going off in August. And then the day after she goes, I'm like, pack the boxes. And I'm going to Florida. So I'm excited to start my own chapter, just in every aspect. And so there's a lot of positive that can come from some sadness. I think I'm trying to allow those emotions in, and I hope you do too, while saying, okay, oh my gosh, it's my turn. Finally, it's okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's really wonderful. Yeah. I have two older kids too. We have two that have left, and then we have a 14-year-old that we still have 4 more years left of high school and everything. So I know I see like what Miriam has gone through, and then what you have got. And I'm like, okay, I have 4 more years until I actually have to get in a fetal position and rock back and forth on the floor. Yeah. I just can't imagine
That's why I'm
it.
selling this house. I can't stay here. And again, it's not I moved a lot. We've been in this one for 3 years. For 4, we were across the country. So it isn't about the house. It's about the home that you create. And I did create this home 3 years ago and they love it, but I cannot handle when they're gone for the weekend, like, you know, with friends, much less living here alone. So that's why I'm like, I'm out. Plus the taxes in Connecticut are way too high. And we know what are going on in Connecticut. I'm like, bye.
How do you feel about them coming back? Because like Miriam's doing this too, where she's going to South Carolina. She's moving in a couple months. And when the kids come back to visit from college, is that going to be, do you feel like that's going to be kind of weird for them to come to a different house? Or do you think that the home in Florida will be like a fresh start for everybody? That's what I wonder about.
Well, I bought it 4 years ago during pandemic, like I said, and I specifically bought Fort Lauderdale, South Florida, because it's one of very few places you can go direct from Hartford, and direct flights. So that was what I based it on. And knowing that there's several good airport options, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm, Miami. So no matter where my kids are in the world, I figured they'd always come visit me there, even with grandkids someday. I figured that because it's right on the beach, and I'm like,
it's Florida. Hello.
Yeah, they'll always want to come. But to answer your question, it's actually a very sore subject here. My daughter, my youngest, is very upset with me for making this decision.
Really?
And I understand that. And I was, because this is her home. I mean, this is where they call home, and this town. And I respect that. And as an Army brat, as you mentioned at the top, I don't have that. So I've been very sensitive about that with them. However, first of all, their dad is going to remain here at least for a year. I don't know for how long. And he's from Indiana, so he'll probably go back there where you guys are. But we've had some tough conversations. And I'm like, everything in my career, once they got to a certain age, was based on their comfort. And I 1,000% I'm happy with what I chose with that. To make them the priority, to turn down many opportunities, many things, to be present, to be where they want to be. And so she wants me to wait 4 more years until she graduates from college. And I'm like, so for 9 months a year, you're gone. I don't have a friend group here. ESPN, when I left there, it's tough. But it's not like I'm in a great place. I'm just saying I need to step, like, that's over. And so to stick around where it's a small town, I'm like, I also, and I'll shut up after this, I also want them to not wait until they're my age, 51, to focus on themselves while still being mom. It took me till now to stop with the guilt and everything else. And I'm like, I love you, and I will make every place a home, I promise you. She asked me for one thing, to keep her bedroom set. And so I'm having an estate sale as soon as everybody leaves, but I'm like, okay, I'll keep your bed.
You can do that. Yeah.
And the little things we can do to help them still feel that connection, I will do what I can while finally saying yes to myself so that they witness that as well. I think there's a lot of positives, but right now she's 18 and she doesn't want to hear it. And I get it.
And you probably know this from being a military brat, a military kid, is that home isn't so much about geography. It's about the people in the place that you're at. It's the people. It's not the place, right?
But I totally hear what you're saying about just wanting the home to feel like home, because we've been in this house his entire life. And so to pick up and leave and then have him not come back to Indianapolis necessarily, but to be going, I'm sorry?
How is he handling that?
He's surprisingly fine. Like, I think I'm putting a lot on him because I'm worried about it. So I'm like, is it going to be weird? And he's like, no. I mean, he's totally chill about it. But I wonder how it'll be different, like actually when he's coming home for Thanksgiving or fall break or whatever, to a whole place that he doesn't have his own room in. You know what I mean? It's going to be an adjustment for sure.
It really will be. And so if there's things, certain pictures, certain... my son with his letters from running cross country and track, and I'm gonna create that. And this is a condo though. This isn't my forever. This is maybe a year, and then I'm gonna see. Maybe I'll end up in Nashville or Texas. Like I don't know, but they're gonna be okay. My mother and father was my dad in the military. My dad is a retired colonel, West Point, the whole thing. And in 23 years in the service, 19 different homes.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I don't know how military families do it.
My mother made every house a home. It was not just 4 walls. And we had no money. She wallpapered, she painted, we got to pick out a color in every home, and they had nothing. So I know for a fact that it truly is about what you as a mother, father, make it, not about the other things. And I look at how my mom did that. She's a saint. And
it's remarkable.
Very efficient. So when I move out of this in September, I'm like, she's 75. I'm like, Mom, you got one more in you. Can you come help me?
Totally. You know she will. You know she'll be there.
She's the best, and I'm grateful. Yeah.
I love that.
That is awesome. So we wanted to tell you, because two things that I wanted to point out for those listening right now. If you don't follow Sage Steele on Instagram, you are missing out. I died laughing at the picture that you posted of your daughter graduating holding a cigar, because your face in the background is everything. Like, can you replicate the face that you made at her?
I when they showed me the picture, and I was like, "Oh, I'm so busted." I think I was just like,
"Yes,
what are you doing?"
Oh my God, that was everything.
These kids think they're so cool. I'm like, "You're idiots. You don't even know what to do with it." And I'm like, "We didn't do that." I mean, Carmel High School, 1990. We didn't have cigars. Maybe the guys did, but I'm like, "We don't even know what to do with it. You guys think you're cool, and you look like jackasses." But I looked like an unhappy in that picture, and when they sent it to me, I was like, I have to post this. This is so
did.
Oh my gosh, that's so great.
And it's so great because that's one of the things that we so appreciate about you. We played this clip from your show when you had Dana White on, and you mistook him momentarily for Joe Rogan. And it was amazing. Like, we could not have loved it harder. The fact that you didn't try to edit it out. You didn't like hold it back. You were like, here's what I did. It was so embarrassing, and I'm sharing it with the world, and bravo. That was a moment.
Yep.
Thank you. I literally, do you know how many people every day I get DMs, or if I'm in an airport, they'll be like, hey, Joe Rogan. I'm like, do you think you're original? Like, this happens every day now. You know who was my biggest champion with that whole thing was Dana White. And he still writes me and will send me clips. He's like, look, we're still trending.
I love it.
But it was so funny because, honestly, I call my kids the wrong name all the time. And I know them pretty well. And I had people saying, like, oh, she didn't even know who she was interviewing. I'm like, dude, I booked him. I've known him. We had if they watched my entire show, they would have known that at the beginning of the show, we talked about Joe because he came in carrying Joe's drink. So he was on my mind. This happened like an hour and 20 minutes in. Do you understand how I felt when I realized what I did? Like, my heart, and I was like, I started sweating profusely. I was like, Dana.
You know what though? I think it's that's a Gen X thing. Like, it's so weird because you don't look like you're a Gen Xer because you look so much younger than, oh my gosh, you look amazing. But I mean, I do feel like that sense of humility and that sense of humor and that ability to like just make fun of yourself is something that a lot of like the newer generation, the youngest generation, they've kind of lost that a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
think you're right. And I will say, like, it was for my first episode too. Like, that was the first one out of the gates. I'm like, well, and Dana's like, Sage, you couldn't ask for anything better than this. This is the best thing ever. I'm like, great. Well, it's like the ass, not you. Because he was like, you saw what he said, and he's like, did she just call? I'm like, Dana, stop it, But I do have full editorial control, and it was a great lesson for me. And I'm like, I didn't even have to think about it. I'm like, leave it in. I'm an idiot. Like, I think it does come with age and wisdom, right? Where you just, if you don't ask it yourself, then you've got to live life. Like, really, I've done enough stupid things on national TV. When you're live on national TV for 2 hours every day for 30 years, whatever it was, 16 at ESPN and elsewhere, like, you're going to screw up.
Totally.
And then I do feel, and I didn't think about it this much. I just like, keep it. And in hindsight, everyone keeps saying, I do think that's what we need more of in our society, right? I think all of us would own our crap in every aspect of our lives. It would be much better. And I think that you do come across as human. Our politicians need that. If you just own it and have some accountability. Because 2 days later, I went on Gutfeld, and Gutfeld played it. And I was like, oh, God. But, like, it was funny. And then Joe Rogan played it. So anyway, thank you. I thought you guys handled it well. Thank you for not making me
Oh, my God.
We loved it. It was great.
Loved it. I mean, because that's everything is so edited and filtered and manufactured now.
Yes.
It was just so refreshing to see such a real moment that you were willing to share with everybody.
Totally.
And I think that's what we loved.
I still have to think because they have the same. I still have to be careful when I talk. I'm like, oh, which one?
Yeah.
I think they look exactly alike too. I mean, that was an easy mistake. Oh my gosh.
And you know what? We know it wasn't a cheap fake. We know that.
No, it was not. Oh my gosh.
It wasn't. Yes.
So speaking of your interviews that you've done, I know you had RFK Jr. on your show. Just really curious to know, because I haven't had a chance to watch that whole episode. What was your takeaway from that interview, and how do you think he is going to shake up this race? Who will he impact more?
Well, I'll start with the first question. Like, it was, I didn't know what to expect, but I was so excited and very curious. It was difficult. He can go on and on and on, and he tells incredible stories. I learned a lot from him. But he's very different from Dana White. He's very different from Sharon Osbourne. Adam Kroll is dropping right now. Jillian Michael, like, as far as having a conversation, very, very different. I was not trying to go deep on political issues because he does that everywhere he goes. My goal for my show is to have conversations with people. And I hadn't met any one of the people I've had on except Matt Barnes, the NBA player. It's the only person I had met previously, even Dana. We had just communicated for years through social media or whatever on live TV, but never in person. So I just want to get to know who they are as people. And he was tough. He was tough I wasn't trying to crack him or anything. I just wanted to go deeper. Like, what's your why? I believe that when we figure that out in people, we can be so much more forgiving of, even if we disagree with them on things, but everyone's got a story. And we all try to make it look so perfect and glamorous. But when we're open about it, others feel, I've realized this in my own personal life and professionally when I've shared, people have come up to me, written me letters that have made me cry saying, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. You went through a divorce too, with kids, like teenagers. So I was trying to get there with him. I got some because I was genuinely curious about him as a human being. And he's been through a lot. And as a Catholic with 2 divorces, with the drug use, with all of these things, like that's a lot. With the abortion topic, which he didn't like me pushing. And then we fell all out from that. I mean, he wouldn't answer. I was like, even up until birth, full term. And at first he got and I pushed, and then you saw the answer. And he said, even up till birth. And
that was like shockwaves. Yeah.
There's shockwaves. And I'm like, and the only reason I went there is because he'd been inconsistent in the past. I did my homework.
Right.
And I didn't have to do much homework. He'd been inconsistent. So I'm like, okay, as a Catholic, as a woman, and as a voter, I want to know. When he said that, I'm like, wow, you just went there and he said it's okay with full term. So 48 hours later to release a statement and saying, I have now learned, I'm like, learned. So he's a smart man. He knew before. And that was fascinating. I'll say this, right after right after I got done with him, and I'm so grateful, Nicole Shanahan came in. And so they met going out the door, and then she came and sat down. And then when I asked her about her stance on abortion after that, she disagreed with what he had said. I was like, he just sat here and said full term. She's like, no, that's not what he meant. I'm like, if you guys are not on the same page, that's an issue to not be on the same page.
Just slightly.
No one really picked up on that, I guess, and I thought that was interesting too. But I really like her as a human being. Like, she's super cool. We have very different views, so I'm grateful that people like that who think differently are saying yes. Maya Bialik could not be more, further left than me, and she said to me at the end, when I met her, you guys, in the lobby, I could feel she was a little cold, and I thought, this one's going to be tough. But I respect her. Brilliant. And I respect so much that she's done and what she's been through. And at the end of my interview, I hope you have a chance to watch that. It got me choked up because she said, I have to tell you, I was nervous to come on with you because I did my homework and I didn't know what your goal was. I didn't know what you were going to ask me. And this was a pleasure, and I'm so glad I did this. And it meant the world because we are opposites in many ways. But what we found, I thought we had a lot in common too.
Yeah.
And when people can converse, you realize how much we have in common as human beings, much less women and mothers. So if you put this aside and are just kind, you never know what can happen. And now I feel like I could call her up and ask her for advice. Anyway,
but don't you think, Sage? I mean, going back to the Gen X thing, back when we were in college, like in our college years and after, maybe up until, I don't know, like early 2000s, I feel like we could do that. I mean, we talk about that a lot on our show, about how liberals and conservatives could hang out and be friends, and we could be in family units together and get along. And now it's just, we're so divided, and it's so different now. So different.
It's sad. It's sad.
It is, because you're right. We do have more in common, I think, with one another and just everyday things. If you take politics out of, I know it's hard to do that now. I think that's almost impossible for people to take politics out of the equation. But if you try, then it's like, okay, look at everyday things. We really do have a lot more in common than people think.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we just have to not quit.
Right.
And then sometimes we need to know when to quit. And I can be guilty of that too.
We are too. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So back to like what you thought, how you think RFK will sort of shake up this race. Do you have because everybody's all over the place on that question, right? Some people are like, oh, he's going to take, Trump voters. He's going to take Biden voters. Did you get any sense of that in your discussion?
No, I didn't. And it was, 6 weeks ago or so. A lot has changed since then. I watched something recently when he went down to the border, and that was something that he was very adamant on my show about. That's the very first thing he would do on day one in office, is close the border. And then I saw a piece where he went down there and how they set up the chairs right where Trump's wall ended. And there was this big hole where people are going through, and the difference, and they're on the same page on the border. And I think that's obviously it's probably top 2 issue for me. And he and Trump being on the same page with that, I think could make a huge difference in who he might choose to align with. I don't know that you want to be related at all to Joe Biden right now. And I'm not talking about someone who leans right. I'm talking about from a human aspect, and it's such a disaster. So I think at the end of the day, he would take more votes away from from Biden. And I asked him about the situation with his family, aligning, like specifically going on that stage in Philadelphia during, a rally and saying, sorry, brother, we're aligning with this guy. And one of his family members obviously works for the Biden administration, but I thought that's gross. And if the Biden administration refuses still to give him Secret Service this close to the election, how could he then just cast it all aside and align with Biden? I don't know.
Yep.
And they've known each other for years, right? So I can see him. I can see him helping the Trump team out. I'm waiting. We need to hear something soon, right? Whether it's the vice presidential candidate, whatever. But I think they have too much in common, actually, for him to not align with Trump.
Yeah. Okay.
Interesting.
You said that the border is your number 2 issue. What's your number 1 issue?
Yeah, I fluctuate. Journalists here asking great follow-up questions. No, listen, national security for me is I'm scared to death.
And they tie together. I mean, those two, you can't extricate them from one another, right?
Correct.
Now you can.
I mean,
yeah.
Again, I look at the human element, not political, with our current president. And number 1, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking that his family,
right?
I've been saying this for years, because I interviewed Joe Biden a month or 2 after he took office. And I noticed it then on an interview like this when I was still at ESPN. And in the commercial break beforehand, actually, it was before we started rolling. We had to tape it, of course. He trailed off. We were having a conversation about football before we started. And I was very aware, and I was concerned. My grandmother died of Alzheimer's. I'm very sensitive to that with the elderly. And I watch it. I turn away because it hurts me, even though I don't like the job he's done as president. I don't like him. I don't like anything. But I have empathy for that, and his family has allowed it.
Oh yeah, they have. It's just it's disgraceful.
And then so why would and you see these world leaders, they're just laughing and licking their chops. I mean, there's so many things that I'm surprised we haven't been hit yet.
Yeah. We agree.
It's about protecting us, and someone who actually, and I know people, and I'm sure you do too, who are pretty close, have worked alongside Trump, in like a security type capacity, and what they say that they witnessed when he's, in a small private group with the leaders from other countries, how he relates, how disarming he is, how much they like him and respect him, everything. That is what we need. And I'm so tired of people not being able to separate their emotions and their feelings from using their brain and common sense and choosing who they vote for. It's actually really that simple. I was with some people this weekend in Indianapolis, and great people, and they're like, I just can't. I mean, he's a criminal. I'm like, you stop with your talking points. And my question, name me one thing where we are better off as Americans in the last 3 years with him as president. And they changed the subject.
My gosh.
No one can answer. Just give me one. That and something, it has to actually be a fact, not your opinion.
Yeah.
So
they're willing to and they're willing to sacrifice their kids and their grandkids for what? For such severe hatred over one guy.
And that's why it's cool to see so many people now standing up, Hollywood people, musicians. It's really cool. And that takes courage when you're out there. I mean, that is where it gives me a little hope. And you see in the Black community even, and rappers, and they're yelling it. And they're coming out like, enough of this. And how about recently when he was Trump in Detroit? I forgot where he was at, and he was sitting with these pastors and said, Obama came to see us, and Biden's never coming. You're in the hood. Thank you.
Yes.
Like, it matters when you show up as parents or as politicians,
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Is exactly right. Sage, I know we're just coming up on a half an hour, so I don't want to keep you. I know you've got dental issues that you're going to take care of. So I don't want to keep you.
Finally, the teeth are finally okay. No more golf balls to the mouth. I'm good.
I love it.
But thank you so much. Who do you have, just out of curiosity, who are some of the guests that you have coming up that people should tune in to listen to?
Well, funny you ask. Laura Trump.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
We got one. Also, and we might have to edit this part out. I'm not sure when this is going to air. When this
and we don't know actually either. Valen will have to let us know that.
So we'll edit this little part out. But Byron Donalds.
Nice.
Wesley Hunt. A conversation that we're having in Atlanta. Actually, and we'll fix this, but actually the night before the debate.
Very exciting. Next week.
And it's all about, there are so many more people of color who are conservatives, but are afraid to admit it. I have Black friends who it's like a whisper, and they don't want their family to find out, but they yes, it is an issue. It is a thing with people that you all know and would recognize. And so I've been asked to moderate that conversation between Byron Donalds and Wesley Hunt, and I'm so honored because I know what it's like to be closeted. I know what it's like to be afraid to speak up and afraid to be yourself. And that's not what America is supposed to be. So people like that, Lynn Patton is going to come on.
Good.
And Dave Rubin is coming on. So just people who I just want to know their stories. Listen, I've gotten a lot of no's. I've gotten a lot of no's from people who are on the left who won't come on and talk, people that I know as well. So I would love it for anyone on the left to come and have a conversation, because guess what? 90% of the time, I don't even want to talk about politics. I care about the human element. That's what this show is for me, because once you really, go there and, for what I've always wanted to do for my dream job, like, I don't want to only talk to people who I agree with. Because then you're going to get a bunch of no's. And I just started. And people already have me pegged over here. And I'm like, well, yes, this is how I feel on vote, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect how I treat you. And I actually want to know about this. I want to know your why behind it. But most importantly, I want to know, like, what happens in your quiet moments? What happens when something hits the fan in your family, professionally and personally? Like when the makeup's off and you're not on the TV screen, this famous person or the movie screen, like, what do you do? And I think when we can focus on the human element, that other stuff goes away. So I hope people will actually, diversity of thought. That's what it's all about. So I've been saying for years, before, during, and after I got canceled, diversity of thought. And it just cracks me up that the people who also preach that just as much are the ones who won't come talk to me.
They're afraid to do it. Yeah. And we can get back we can get back to the way that we used to do things. And on that note, on that note, how do you what do you do in your spare time? What are your favorite pastimes? What do you like to do when you're not on the air doing this with us and being on television? What do you like to do? What does Sage like to do?
I'm figuring that out because, again, becoming an empty nester, I'm like, what am I going to do? And my job now is so different than it's been my whole life.
Yeah.
I did pick up golfing, and it's something I took my first lesson 22 years ago before I had my first child, and in 22 years I haven't taken another lesson. But I've gotten my clubs updated and a nice new golf bag, and I'm finally saying yes to these tournaments and celebrity tournaments that I was always invited to, but was too embarrassed to go to because I couldn't play. I didn't want to be the girl sportscaster supposed to be great at everything, and I walk out with. I was like, oh God, am I with her? But now I'm committed to golf, especially moving to Florida, trying to become a member of a club down there, maybe, which I said I'd never do. But like, I don't have that many friends yet, so I'm trying to meet people down there.
Yeah,
I do exercise a lot. That's been my saving grace for many years, but especially divorce, pandemic were all at the same time. And then cancellation and work changes, it was all at the same time. And my exercise has been the one thing. And I'm not great or terribly consistent, but what a difference when I do that. And I really like red wine. So that's a habit. I don't know.
I love it. That's great.
So how can people find you on all of the socials, and how do they find your show?
Oh, see, you guys are good at this, and I always forget because there's a way to say it right. Okay. YouTube, you can subscribe to me on YouTube, The Sage Steele Show. You subscribe and like, right? I didn't understand the whole subscription thing, and it's, oh my gosh, that's important. I'd check at some point. That would be great. So subscribe and like on YouTube. I have my show, Sage Steele Show, YouTube, and then also my own personal, which I'm trying to build up again, just to be an idiot and talk about my problems with my best friend makeup artist. We talk about, she's like, okay, can I screen, if we line up guys for you to date, can I screen them? I'm like, what? She's like, would you get the first date? I'm like, I cannot talk about this. But, so we're trying to do that on that channel. Because again, I'm not afraid to look like an idiot. I have proven that many times. And then Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. But Instagram is my thing. Sage Steele Show on Instagram, but also my personal, because that's where I show the pictures of me trying not to judge my daughter and her cigar.
Love it.
And if you look right now, I mean, I got hit by another golf ball, and I have a bruise the size of Africa on my left leg. So that's where I am, just totally unfiltered, and my kids hate it, and I think they've unfollowed me. So,
well, I'm sure you'll get a lot of new followers. Our audience, I'm sure, will love you, and we really appreciate you taking the time.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Sage.
Thank you for having me, and I mean that.